Hi, my name is Aryan Gautam, and I'm going to be going over how I managed to complete my project of building an arcade machine with my own coded games during this 5-month period.
Oh my god, Agent killed another one.
So first I started off by buying all the materials, which included a Raspberry Pi 4 that came with a kit for protection of it, some wood, paint, and some other electronics that I might have needed, and I got together all the stuff that I had at my house ready to use. So I started off by making 3D designs after learning Inventor and Fusion 360. These design softwares allow me to make 3D models and drawings of what I'm going to be creating out of wood and the other materials that I have. So after learning for a month how to use this app and how to code all this stuff, I finally made some good designs on my arcade cabinet and the overall layout I will be using to cut my materials with. The next step to the whole project was coding the games. Since I was not going to be using RetroPie or pre-downloaded games, I had to code them. After a long time of trial and error, this is what I came up with. Originally, I was about to code Super Mario, Pac-Man, and Space Invaders, but I realized that coding Super Mario was not really possible with the time constraints and all the setbacks I had, so therefore I only coded Space Invaders and Pac-Man. Even though it's only those two, it's running very well, and I like how it turned out. The coding language that I was using was block coding, essentially, using Scratch, as it was the best method to make games in an easy way with the level of learning for coding that I had. The tough part was coding the interface and also creating like a screen before the interface that lasts for a couple seconds, so that would kind of give the player options to pick games since I was going to code multiple. This took a lot of trial and error to make, but at the end I did figure out how to do it and how to get the player to play the games efficiently without having to do any other controls. After my 3D model was made, I decided to make the drawings for it next. So the 2D drawings were needed so that I would have measurements, angles, and overall everything I need to make the proper measurements and cutouts on the pieces of wood that I had and other materials. So I've drawn them according to the scaling on my 3D model onto a piece of paper, and I added all the little details, the measurements, and all the important things that I would need to cut out my stuff on the piece of paper and also on the wood. Next came buying the wood. As I had a major setback due to COVID-19, I thought I wouldn't have the opportunity to get some wood and I would have to use some unsturdy materials such as cardboard and plastic totes. But in the end, I did realize a way that I could grab the wood, and I did get some wood at the end to make my arcade cabinet strong and sturdy rather than using other materials that wouldn't be as effective. So I picked up a lot of wood of various sizes so that I could start making my measurements and cutouts. Then I started cutting the wood with some materials that we had at home already to cut wood and other hard materials like that. So we made measurements onto the paper, and then with the help of an adult, I started cutting some wood using special saws, knives, and other sharp items like that. And eventually we cut all the pieces of wood part by part with all the measurements on them so that they were ready to be put together. Before I could do any of this, I had to learn how to do woodworking. So I took some online courses and learned a little bit about woodworking and how to cut wood and deal with all that stuff as well. After all the cutting was done, I had to grab some materials such as drills, hammers, nails, screws, and I started to get all the parts together and join them. So first I started off by looking at my 3D model I made earlier and putting all the parts together the way that I modeled it over there. I made some cutouts for my keyboard and the buttons that I had electrically wired and other things like that. So after I had gotten the foundation done by using metal bolts and other things to keep it in place and keep it sturdy, then I started to put stuff together more precisely, such as the AGM tag, other stuff like that. And in the back, I also added a hinge so that I could add my Raspberry Pi and all the other stuff in that easily without having to hassle and putting it in beforehand. After that part was done, I decided to put my monitor and other electrical parts in so that it was easier for me to paint after without having to make a mess and other difficulties and hassles like that. So I added all my electronics in, wired everything up, and saw that everything was working flawlessly and perfectly. Just some minor imperfections I had to fix after. So after that, I decided to paint my arcade cabinet and add some designs to it so that it would fit the theme of galaxies and outer space and space, just like that. So after I'd done that, I had to do a lot of testing to make sure that everything did work eventually and that everything was perfect in just the way that I wanted. So after a couple days of testing, this is what I had finished. In June, I did some analyzation of the build I made and double checked the sturdiness and overall if it would hold up during this month with the couple days I had. During this time, I also spent a lot of time with video editing and learning how to do that perfectly so that I could achieve the best video I could make. So in the end, it was a difficult process, but I did make through all the difficulties that I had and showed resilience towards any setbacks I had as well. For example, with COVID-19, I thought that I would not be able to finish my project due to the lack of wood and materials and things that I couldn't uh, machine with, as a lot of things were closed due to COVID-19. Another roadblock was that I had fallen a little bit behind with my coding, as I had lost everything that I coded, but then within 2 weeks or a week and a half, I had gained everything back due to my hard work that I had done. So originally, I thought that buttoning and all the electrical engineering parts would be easy, but this turned out to be the hardest aspect of my project. What was really hard was that I thought everything would be auto-mapped when I connected all the keyboarding and stuff, as it usually was, but I realized that by coding my own games, I took this challenge really far, and it turned out to be very challenging, because normally it would be easy to just configure them as it's part of apps that usually have emulators for arcades, but since I coded it, it was extremely tough. I had to learn how to code through the coding services where the Raspberry Pi brought it, and overall was really difficult in the end. I did manage to be able to learn how to code the specific items through some tutorials and some other how-to tips, and in the end, I did get it to work through a tough process that I had surpassed. Overall, this project was definitely not what I expected, but took some great and fun twists and turns that I really appreciated, that caused me to keep going and keep my guard up the whole time while working, avoiding any procrastination. This project was really fun in the end and turned out really nicely, and I'll definitely remember this for the rest of my life. Here's some footage of me playing the game and its final product.